Marion Bartoli had the biggest moment of her career right at the end of her career. She won the 2013 Wimbledon title at the age of 29, and then she retired just a couple of weeks after that. Since then, Bartoli has done some TV work, and this past year she spent some time coaching French Open champion Elena Ostapenko. But it's the comments that Bartoli made about doubles during an interview this week that's making some waves. Bartoli said, among other things, quoting here, "In doubles, you just don't make the same effort as a singles player. You don't practice as much. They keep going week in and week out, getting the money. I don't know if we have to stop doubles completely, but to get less money and to give that money to qualification and others, that should be a solution." End of quote. And as that washes over you, we welcome in John Wertheim for the first time today. John, take it away. What's her problem with doubles?
Well, tennis gonna tennis. This is an age-old dispute about how to divide the pie. I'm not sure Marion Bartoli would necessarily be my first choice of mouthpiece. I mean, certainly there are other singles players who think similarly, may not express it quite that way, especially at a time when tennis is idle. But no, I mean, at its core, this is about how we divide the pie. And there are singles players who resent doubles and doubles players who resent singles. I would take issue with some of her characterizations. I mean, I think it's worth pointing out Marion Bartoli was not a particularly accomplished doubles player. But those remarks are going to provoke some responses, and sure enough, they did.
Yeah, they're already provoking responses. And Jim, let's attack this first from the prize money standpoint. You've actually done some pretty deep dives on the way prize money is divided over the last year or so. Take us through what she's talking about and what she should be talking about.
This is last year's prize money breakdown as far as a percentage of the overall purse at Roland Garros, which is representative of the slams, and in Indian Wells, Miami, which represents the tours. This is equal prize money in both these events. So you can see that doubles gets 13% of the overall purse in last year's Roland Garros, while at tour it's mandated 20% of the purse goes to doubles. So it's a little bit more in the tour events where there's not as much of a big pie. What I'm looking at here is qualifying, is to get 6% in the majors, which is far more than the 2% they get in qualifying. And for me, I think what we're talking, she was asked, how can we get more money down to the players playing the challengers? That's the thesis that she was working off of. And I've been working off of the thesis that I think we should balance things out, which is what's on the green a little bit more to help the players in the qualifying, because the doubles players are on tour every week. Those are players that get hospitality every week. Players playing in the qualifying are playing in the challengers most weeks, and they're not making much prize money in those events. So when they come to the slams and the big events, that's their chance to make a living. And let's be clear, doubles players are not killing it. But there were 50 players in 2018 in men's tennis who made $100,000 or more playing doubles only. Okay, so that's making a living because you have your expenses from a hotel standpoint covered every year. You're probably splitting a coach, but in no way, shape, or form are they extremely wealthy or putting much money away. So what we should be focused on, and I think that was the point of the question to Marion, is how do we allocate in a better way, a more fair way perhaps, to more players the amount of prize money that we have? Because everyone can agree that we should have more money in the minor leagues, but how do you get there? And that's kind of where we are in many ways, Lindsay.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's interesting. If you talk to most of the fans and a lot of our viewers, they are doubles players. They enjoy seeing doubles. They enjoy going around at these tournaments. You go at Indian Wells, all those doubles matches are packed on the outer courts, and fans really get into it. It's very hard to put down a certain trade. And essentially that's what Bartoli was kind of doing. There's a way to try and change the distribution of prize money without offending certain players. And I didn't like the tone of that. I think that the doubles players are very skilled and they were upset. There was a lot of them that spoke out. A couple of the male players spoke out. I mean, she was saying that the doubles players traveled with six people in their entourage. Not true. Gabby Dabrowski on the WTA, who's been a very popular and successful doubles player, came out and she had a very long social media message to her, but basically saying, one, we don't get the court time at the tournaments to practice anyways. We're not overpaid. We are also trying to hone our particular skill on a doubles court, which is very different from a singles court. We don't need necessarily endurance. We go for more skill shots. I encourage everyone to look up Gabby Dabrowski and read. Again, it is very long. She gives a lot of counterpoints to it. But I just think right now in the sport, we need everybody kind of together, not fighting each other. And I like Jim's idea. Look for solutions. Don't look to try and push anybody out of the sport or demean what they do for a living.
These are the bullet points we put together of Dabrowski's series of tweets, which in reality went 17 pages and was, John, a very thorough refutation of the things that Bartoli said. Do you think that in large measure the rank and file of players agree more with Dabrowski and disagree with what Bartoli was saying?
I do, and I think, I think as we've all been saying, there's a way to get this point across without basically condemning and disparaging what someone else in the locker room is doing for a living. I mean, one solution to all this is we can figure out ways to incentivize singles players to play doubles. And actually, in recent years, we've done pretty well on this front. A number of players, I mean, Tsitsipas, Nick Kyrgios, a lot of the top women players, Ash Barty. I mean, we've seen a lot of singles players in both draws. That would obviously help economize costs. That would also sort of change the draw structure. I mean, at some level, this is sort of the glass ceiling argument of tennis. We've been having this for years, and how do we make doubles more popular? And the doubles players say, listen, if you publicize this better, we would draw fans. And singles players sometimes respond, well, I'm seeing a lot of empty seats. Why are you getting 19% of the revenues? But I do think incentivizing more singles, I mean, someone on it, Lindsay Davenport, very accomplished doubles player who also got to #1 in the world. If we saw more of that, that would reshape things.
Well, I think, John, when we went to our dive at the U.S. Open last year, we did look into how many players in that U.S. Open draw last year were playing doubles that were also singles players. And the answer was it was significant. About 40% of the doubles draw was filled with players also competing in singles. So, again, they're double dipping, and good for them. That's their right. They've earned that right by ranking to be able to do that, not saying that they shouldn't. But so there is an incentive for them to play. The top players, especially on the men's side, won't do it in the majors by and large because of the best of 5. If you move off of that and make it best of 3 and you're playing every other day, I think a lot of the nearly top players might reconsider that. And we see that at Indian Wells when we cover it at Tennis Channel, how popular doubles is, especially when the top singles players are involved, male and female. So there is some magic to that. That's an extra chance to see your stars out on the court. But let's make no mistake, doubles has had doubles-only events. I played in the doubles masters in London, apart from the singles way back in the year with Pete Sampras as my partner when we were teenagers. And it was not a well-attended event, and there were not high revenues associated with that. Doubles need singles. People will not pay the same amount of money to see doubles that they will to see singles, but they will stay to watch doubles. Doubles is valuable to tennis. We need those matches. It's very valuable. It connects us to our fans. But it's not a standalone success as a business. It just simply isn't. Anyone who says that hasn't done the math on it.
Yeah, and I think it's also a generational thing. I mean, when I was playing in the 90s, every top singles player was playing doubles also. It was part of just what you did. And a lot of the women have gotten away from that. Tougher for the men, as Jim was saying, in the majors, 3 out of 5 sets and recovering. But the women absolutely can. I mean, you look at the success of Serena and Venus when they were playing in the majors, also doing well in singles. So we'll see, especially on the women's side. There is a lot of room there for the top players to still play doubles and maybe help bring some more fans into it.
Good discussion, guys.